You know that feeling, sitting alone, eyes locked on your phone, waiting for a message, waiting for a sign, waiting for the smallest proof that she's still thinking of you. Every time your phone vibrates, your heart skips. Hope flares up for a second, only to shatter when you see it has nothing to do with her. That drop in your chest cuts like a dull blade, not killing you instantly but slicing away at your pride little by little. In those moments, you're like a man trapped in an invisible cage. And the cruelest truth is that you're the one who locked yourself inside. You convince yourself that if you text more, call more, show up more often, she'll miss you. But don't you see, the harder you try to force your presence into someone's memory, the faster you disappear from it. You think you're planting seeds of longing, but in reality, you're suffocating it. Like pouring too much water on a flower, you don't help it bloom, you make it wither. So why do you fall into this trap? Why do you believe that more presence means more desire? Why do you confuse noise for power and constant appearance for true attraction? The answer leads to a deeper truth, one that most men never find the courage to face. The illusion that makes you invisible. Think about what you usually do when you feel her slipping away. You start texting more, sometimes sending one message after another, as if showing up often enough would keep you in her thoughts. You pretend to be busy, crafting an image of a man always in demand, hoping that your hard-to-get act will spark her curiosity. You even post pictures or updates designed to catch her eye, secretly wishing she'll see them and feel a twinge of jealousy. But the truth is the opposite. Every extra message, every fake display of busyness, every attempt to grab her attention only reveals how deeply you depend on her validation. It's like a man thrashing in deep water. You believe the harder you fight, the better your chances of survival. But in reality, the more you struggle, the faster you sink. And in her eyes, the image of a strong man fades, replaced by the sight of a boy panicking for air. You think you're planting seeds of longing. But what you're really doing is handing her more reasons to forget you, because people rarely miss what is always flooding their senses. They miss what feels scarce. They miss what feels alive. They miss what they could lose. When you constantly appear on her phone, on her feed, in her attention, you become background noise. Familiar, predictable, easy to tune out. What once felt exciting now becomes ordinary, and nothing disappears from memory faster than the ordinary. This is the bitter paradox. The very things you thought would keep you anchored in her mind become the weight that drags you out of it even faster. So ask yourself this: if everything you've been doing only speeds up the process of her forgetting you, then what truly plants the seed of memory? What actually makes someone unforgettable, even in their absence? The power of distance. Have you ever noticed this? People often miss someone the most, not when they're right beside them, but when they're gone. An empty chair in a familiar room can stir your heart more deeply than seeing that person sit there every day. Absence has a strange kind of power. It ignites imagination. And imagination is always stronger than reality. When she no longer sees you, her mind begins to fill the empty space with memories, with emotions, with fragments of how you once made her feel. A smile, a glance, even silence, these small moments can become vivid images in her mind. Think of a scent that lingers on a jacket. The person doesn't have to be there. The fragrance alone is enough to stir your heart, enough to summon memories so strong that it feels like they never left. Sometimes, a fleeting trace feels more alive than an entire day spent together. Here lies the paradox. The very thing men fear most is distance. You worry that if you don't text, don't show up, she'll forget you. You fear that silence will erase your place in her heart. But it is distance that often makes a woman remember you more, because distance creates space, and space feeds imagination. Distance works like a mirror. It doesn't create anything new. It magnifies what was already there. If you've left her with emotions that are deep, real, and unforgettable, then in your absence, her imagination multiplies those memories. But if you left her nothing, distance will only expose the emptiness. That's why distance doesn't automatically make you unforgettable. It only opens the path. What truly matters is the imprint you leave before you step away. If what you've left is exhaustion, pressure, or neediness, then distance becomes her relief. But if what you've left is strength, aliveness, and presence, then distance becomes an invisible bridge, pulling her back to you even in silence. When strength outweighs strategy. One of the biggest mistakes men make is believing there's a secret strategy that will make a woman miss them. You hear about the so-called 3-day rule, about carefully calculated replies, timed silences, perfectly crafted messages. You convince yourself that if you apply the right formula, the result is guaranteed. But here's what you don't realize. Every time you rely on tricks, you're silently admitting that who you are is not enough. A man who puts his hope in tactics is, at the core, revealing his own emptiness. And if you don't believe you're enough, how could you ever become the kind of man she truly remembers? What lingers in someone's memory is not a technique, it's the energy you carry. She doesn't remember that you waited exactly 3 hours before replying. She remembers how she felt sitting across from you. She remembers the calm in your eyes, the warmth of your smile, the certainty in your presence. A real fire doesn't need to shout to prove it's burning. Anyone standing near can feel its warmth. In the same way, a man with true strength doesn't need to rely on games. His presence alone is undeniable proof. Silence works the same way. Sometimes it's nothing more than an empty gap that fades quickly. But silence can also become a powerful echo, reminding her of what you once brought into her life. The difference lies in you. If your presence was full of neediness, anxiety, and dependence, then your silence brings her nothing but relief. But if your presence was full of strength, aliveness, and steadiness, then even when you're gone, silence becomes the echo of what she once felt. At that moment, a clear line appears. On one side, the man who constantly clings to tactics just to hold her attention. On the other, the man whose strength and presence are enough to carve him into memory without effort. That line decides everything in her eyes. Are you the man she merely tolerates, or the man she cannot forget? The man who is needed versus the man who is wanted. Take a hard look at this contrast. On one side stands the man who is merely needed. On the other, the man who is truly wanted. The man who is needed clings. He fears losing her attention, so he tries everything to hold on. His actions are driven by fear, his words shaped by insecurity, and he lives with the thought if she leaves, I'll have nothing. And because of that, everything he does carries a heavy weight, leaving her drained rather than drawn to him. The man who is wanted, in contrast, doesn't need to hold on to anyone. He is free because he doesn't treat love as the only anchor of his worth. He is whole because he has already found value within his own life. And when he shows up, he naturally sparks curiosity and desire not through games, but through the strength of simply being himself. Picture a weak candle flickering in the wind. One small breeze is enough to snuff it out, leaving nothing but darkness. That is the man who is needed fragile, forgettable, easily erased. Now picture a star across the night sky. It may flare and vanish, but its light remains imprinted in memory, leaving its trace across the heavens. That is the man who is wanted. His presence leaves an imprint, even when he is no longer there. What you must understand is this: women don't remember the man who is always available. They may get used to him, but they don't long for him. What they truly remember is the man who stirred them deeply. The man who made them pause, who made them think, who made them feel they had touched something rare. So your goal is not to become someone she needs in order to function. Your goal is to become the kind of man whose presence is so alive, so undeniable that every moment with you carries weight. And when you're gone, the echo of that presence continues to live inside her memory. This difference forms the foundation of everything. But strength alone is not enough. To carve those emotions deep into her memory, you need one more element. A silent but decisive force, one that can turn your presence into something unforgettable, even in your absence. The silence that creates desire. Have you noticed that sometimes what we remember most is not found in presence, but in absence? When someone is gone, silence creates an emotional void, and the human mind hates emptiness. It instinctively fills that space with memories, with sensations, with the way you once made them feel. She may recall the way you smiled, a fleeting comment you made, or even how your quiet presence made the air around her feel safe. In silence, these small fragments grow larger. Imagination magnifies them, turning them into echoes that last far longer than words. Think of a delicious meal. While you are eating, you may not notice every detail of its flavor, but when the meal is over, it's the aftertaste that lingers. The aftertaste is what makes you crave it again, not the bites you swallowed, but the memory it leaves behind. In the same way, it is the silence after you leave that makes her realize what about you still remains within her. Many men confuse silence with neglect. They fear that if they don't text, if they don't show up, they will be forgotten. But silence, when built on a presence that was real and alive, becomes an invisible bridge. It doesn't erase you. It pulls her closer, through her own imagination. The truth is, silence only has power if you left something behind. If all you gave her was worry, neediness, and emptiness, then your silence is nothing but relief. But if you left her with steadiness, warmth, and life, then every moment of silence becomes a reminder. And this is where you begin to see clearly not every man has the strength to turn silence into longing. Only the man who is strong, alive, and complete can etch himself so deeply that absence itself becomes memory. The man impossible to forget. The man who truly lingers in a woman's memory is not the one who talks the most, nor the one who tries the hardest to show off. He is often quieter than you'd expect, yet every moment he creates feels alive. He is fully present in every conversation, in every glance, in every silence. You cannot control how someone else will remember you. That lies beyond your reach. But you can control yourself, how you live, how you show up, what kind of energy you bring. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom: release what is outside your control, and master the one thing that always belongs to you yourself. Picture a statue standing still in the town square. It doesn't need to move. It doesn't need to beg for attention. Yet over time, its shadow stretches across days of sun and seasons of rain, carving its imprint into the ground. People may rush past, but the image remains, quietly etched into the fabric of memory. A man with presence is the same. He doesn't need to shout for attention. His quiet existence is enough to be remembered. But here's the truth you must face. Distance by itself does not create longing. Distance is only a mirror. If you planted genuine emotions within her, then in your absence, her imagination will amplify them. If you left behind nothing but exhaustion and emptiness, distance will only magnify that void. This is why so many men believe silence or withdrawal will make them more desirable, yet they still fade from memory. They think disappearing automatically makes them more valuable. But silence holds no power without an echo. Distance carries no meaning unless you left behind something worth remembering. The man who is impossible to forget is the one who leaves behind sparks of life, safety, curiosity, a subtle sense of wonder. These feelings don't need noise to be powerful. They are quiet, yet undeniable. And when she tries to push the thought of him away, those echoes return, reminding her of what she once felt. It is here that everything converges. Every lesson about illusions, about distance, about strength and presence points to a final truth. A truth that, once seen clearly, leaves many men stunned. The final truth. This is the moment to face the truth most men avoid. You don't need to force anyone to miss you. You don't need tricks. You don't need calculated strategies. You don't need to perform as someone you're not. What you truly need is to live so authentically that the memory of you becomes a mark that cannot be erased. People can forget a message. They can forget a call. They can even forget a shallow presence. But they will never forget the feeling you gave them. A feeling deep enough, real enough, rare enough that no one else could replace it. That is the true power of presence. Think of a shooting star. It flashes across the sky for only a moment, yet its light can remain etched in memory for a lifetime. People don't remember it for how long it lasted. They remember it because it was real, because it was undeniable, because it was unforgettable. You are the same. You don't need to be there every moment to be remembered. You only need to be so genuine that even when you leave, the echo of you still lingers. So ask yourself, if you were gone tomorrow, what about you would still echo in the hearts of others? Would they feel relief in your absence? Or would they feel a deep emptiness because your presence once brought something they cannot replace? Here is the final truth. Longing is not something you chase. It is the natural result of living fully, strongly, and authentically. When you become that kind of man, the memory of you outlives every tactic. And if you miss the lessons ahead, you will repeat the same mistakes again. Don't let yourself be the man who is forgotten. Subscribe now, because this journey has only just begun.